Hello, lovely students. So we are continuing with our videos about the perfect tenses, and today we are doing our third lesson about future perfect, right? The future perfect tense. And I hope you have reviewed and understood present perfect and past perfect, which are very important and will lead to understanding this one as well. So hey, let's do this together, alright? So let's start from the definition as usual. Future perfect tense indicates a specific event that has happened in the future before another one happens. So this time it's all about future. So if this is now, as the illustration showed, if this is now, this is our first event in the future. Okay, for example, the first event is the fact that you will be 20 years old. Okay, so here you will be 20 years old. Okay, the second event in the future is that you will be 24 years old, for example. Now you are 18 years old. The first event into the future is the fact that you will be 20 years old, and the second event into the future is the fact that you will be 24 years old. So we have two events in the future. Now, the future perfect tense makes a comparison between these two events and connects them together in a way that you will be able to understand the relationship between the two events together. It doesn't focus on any of the two events. If you tell me about these two events separately, and I mean separately, then you will say, I will be 20 years old. I will be 24 years old, right? Separately. But when you say them together or tell them together, it's a different story. So let's go on and try to understand that, okay? Let's look at this example first, okay? So imagine this situation, okay? You are going to Erbil, okay, and you're coming back. When you come back home, okay, your mom has already prepared breakfast for you. So the first event, you live in Suleimani, for example, you have gone to Erbil, you come back, right? The first event is the fact that your mom has prepared breakfast for you, okay? This is the first event. It's in the future, okay? Both of the events are in the future. Okay, but this one is the first event. Your mom prepares breakfast for you, first event. Second event, okay, in the future, you will travel back home. So my mom will prepare breakfast, first event. I will travel back home, but this event happens before this event, okay? Your mom prepares breakfast first, then you will come back home, okay? So this should be clear, okay? So how do we say that using the perfect tense to make the comparison between these two events? Now I'll give you the rules in next slide probably, but try to understand this. So my mom will have prepared breakfast before I travel back home. You see, these two events are both into the future, but this one is present simple, right? Grammar 1, very easy, present simple. Why? Because it's in a clause, right? We have the word before. Because it's in a clause. It's always like that with future perfect, as I will explain in next slides, right? So one of the events here, as you see, is present simple, and the other one is future perfect. And now let's understand future perfect. You see this strange structure right here, right? As you see, we have subject and will and have and past participle. Let's just try to understand this in the next slide, okay? So if it is positive, we have a subject. The subject is anything, nearly anything, right? And then we have will, always will, right? So very easy. She, he, it, they, we, you. It's always will, okay? Always will. Then have, it's never has, right? It's always have. Always have, right? Then we have a verb which is past participle. It's either regular or irregular. I'll remind you the regular ones are like listen, listened, listened, right? For instance, open, opened, opened, right? So the third one is the past participle is opened. The irregular ones are like, for example, teach, taught, taught, right? Read, read, read. Cut, cut, cut. So those are irregular. They don't follow rules. The negative is that you will only add not to the word, right? That's the only difference. The interrogative, the questioning version, you will flip the will and the subject, right? The will and the subject. So you need to take notes of this, try to remember this, but do not memorize it. Just try to remember the structure, alright? So a couple of notes that you need to understand. This is very, very important. The first thing is that the future perfect tense either is a simple one or a progressive one, which we will ignore for the moment. We will go easy on you. The first one is that it should always involve two events, because the perfect tenses, and this is also true for present perfect and past perfect and future perfect, they all need to have two events involved, because they show you the duration and the comparison between two events. They are never separate, okay? If they are separate, then you either use present simple or past simple instead. If it is one event, you never need this. But when you make comparison between two events, then it is necessary to use the perfect tenses. That was the first thing. The second thing, if the events are narrated separately, right, are told separately, they will both be future simple, right? Future simple, subject, will, right? Base, verb, and the rest of the sentence, if they are told separately, as I showed you in this slide, right? Will travel, will prepare, right? Nothing strange about it, only a simple future, right? So the third note, the two events are linked together, but the problem is, that's when you need the perfect tense. The events are linked together. They are connected. There's a comparison made between them. In that situation, you will use the perfect tense, okay? In this case, the future perfect, because the events are both into the future. One of the two events happens before the other event. This is pretty clear when you have two events happening. One of them always happens before the other one in the perfect tenses. The last and most important note is that the first event is future perfect tense, or is in future perfect tense, and the second event is in present simple, okay, tense. Alright, so this you should remember. Very, very important. The event that happens first, okay, and I'm talking chronologically, okay, in the time order, okay. So this one happens first, it is future perfect tense. This one happens second, it's present simple tense, okay. Let's go back to our first example. This one happened first, right? So it is in future perfect tense, as you can notice. This one happened second, so it is in present simple tense, right? And the reason is the relative clause and the conjunction you have here, alright? Which you don't really need to know about. Alright, so there are a couple of indicators that are usually associated with all the perfect tenses. Now, this might be confusing to you that we have already just before, after, when, by the time, with present perfect, past perfect, and future perfect. But yes, they are used with all of them, and it is the meaning that gives you a hint regarding which one is the correct one, right? But these are always used, so all used with the perfect tenses, right? All used with the perfect tenses. So with all of them, okay? No exception, all of them, right? So We have already, we have just, right? Already, something that happened before. We have just, something that's just happening right now or in the future. We have before, something happens prior to the another one, excuse me. And we have after, something happens, after something else has taken place. I'm sorry, we have to use the same word anyways. Is there any synonyms for this word? Let me see. Afterwards, yeah, it's the same thing. Well, subsequently, probably not really something useful here. We have when, right? It regards the time, and we have by the time, right? Right when something else happens. So let's give a couple of examples about these and try to explain how they work, right? My last slide, hopefully. So I'm gonna put these into sentences using the future perfect tense. I'll remind you, in each of these sentences, each of them, I will have two events happening. One of them is happening first, the other one second, but they're both in the future. The one that happens first is, think about it, is future perfect. And the one that happens second is present simple, even though it's in the future. Do not confuse this, please, okay? I'll talk about the relative clause later, and you will understand hopefully what I mean by these, but for the moment, just try to follow up with me, alright? So my first example, okay? Ahmed will have graduated from high school before he is 19 years old, right? So Ahmed now is probably 16 in 5th grade or 11th grade, excuse me, or 12th grade, we don't know. But we know he is in school now, but he is not 19 yet. He's probably 17, 16, below 19. This is in the future, okay? This is in the future, okay? So, but we know, or we guess, it doesn't really matter. We know that he will graduate, right? The graduation happens first. Then he will be 19, okay? So probably he graduated at 18, we don't know, right? So because this event happened first, it is future perfect. How do we know? We have a subject, we have will, we have, and we have our past participle verb form, graduate, graduated, graduated, right? The third form. Then the rest of the sentence, before. This is our conjunction here, right? Our relative clause, the whole thing. This is also in the future. It's a second event, but it is present simple, ironic, because we have a clause here, right? Before he is 19 years old, not before. Not we shouldn't say before he will be 19 years old. That's wrong, okay? It is wrong. Use present simple, even though it's in the future. That's how it makes sense to a reader, okay? So this sentence will be my second event. Let's go to our second example. Kalin, just a girl's name, will have just started school. Will have just started school when she is 6, okay? Which event happens first? The event that has the future perfect form right now. Where did my red go? Oh, here we go. Alright, so this happens first in the future, then this happens, right? So, and this is my conjunction here, correct? We usually use that. We also have just. In the previous example, what did I have? Well, nothing. So here I have just, right? One of the indicators I told you about, right? So it helps me pinpoint the event in the future, just, right? So this is very close to that. As you know, most students go to high school in Kurdistan when they are 6 years old. In this example, our student Kalin goes to school, or will go to school because it's in the future, right? Before she is 6, right? So we're saying she will have just started school when she is 6, right? Let's go to my third example. Safin will have already gotten a job, right, after he finishes his master's degree. So we have two events. One of the events is he finishes his master's degree, right? My second event. My first event is that he gets a job. So first he gets a job, then he finishes his master's degree. Because this is my first event, it is in future perfect tense, right? He will have already, we have the word already to help us, right? Already, an indicator, gotten a job after he finishes his master's degree, right? In this case. So, well, that's not the right green, then yeah, okay, this is the right green. So, and I also have my indicator here, right? My indicator, I shouldn't bold that one. Okay, so as you see, the structure is pretty similar, right? Same exact structure, but you should be able to understand the meaning and now what you are trying to say, right? Okay, so look at this one. We have by the time to help us, right? By the time, right? The students leave class. They will have already been in class for 40 minutes. So what am I saying here? I have two events. The first event is that the students will be in class for 40 minutes. The second event is that they leave the class, obviously, right? So this is my second event, correct? In green, my second event, because they leave class after they have been in class for 40 minutes. So, because it's in the future, my first event is what is that? Future perfect, right? They will have already been, right? Been, right? Is, am, are become was and were, and they become been. So this is my verb, right? So by the time the students leave class, they will have already been in class for 40 minutes. My last example, when I am 26 years old, I will have already finished my university degree. So try to pause the video and do this one by yourself, okay? Try to do this one by yourself. Think about it. Alright, I hope you tried. So let's do the same thing as we did up here. Let me read the sentence to you first. When I am 26 years old, I will have already finished my university degree. Which one happens first, according to my structure, the structure of my sentence? Clever. So this event happens, the event with the present simple and the close. I have this one here, right? This event happens the last, so it happens the second time, right? So it should be in green, correct? Because it happens the second time. This is my first event, right? How do I know it's my first event? The meaning of the sentence tells me that, and I know it's in the future perfect form, and I already told you about this part, which is very important, right? The future event, the first event is in future perfect tense, right? And the second event is present simple, right? The second event is present simple, this event, right? So it's in present simple. We have the conjunction in the relative clause here, so it is the second event, and my first event is this. The meaning of the sentence is very, very important. Think about the meaning. What does this tell you? It tells you that I will finish my university degree first, then I will be 26 years old. Okay? But when we put them together and compare them together, we use the future perfect tense in this structural way, right? I can flip the sentence and say, and say it like this, right? Okay, no problem, no problem. Okay, same thing. But when I'm using the close at the beginning, I have to use a comma, right? A close at the beginning, so I have to use a comma. Same thing goes to this example, okay? So I hope this is clear, but I'm telling you this, you need to practice these types of structures and sentences and tenses actually require a lot of practice and self-learning, right? So read books, read things and watch things, and relate this to your prior experiences to be able to link them together. Your brain will need some time to digest this, all right? So let me create a new slide and wish you good luck. Good luck and thanks for picking. Good for everyone, guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope you will learn from this. If you need help, again, this is my personal email, right? I have given you this before, but I just want to make sure you will have this. You can always email me and ask me for help, okay? Always, always, always. Thank you, and goodbye for now.